Okay, joining me now from Sonoma are Jenny and Scott Schultz of Jolie-Laide Winery, or Jolie-Laide. We're going to talk about pronunciation here in just a minute. So, hey, Jenny. Hey, Scott. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Excited to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you got it. So I guess we'll break it down one at a time. Scott, I'll start with you. I believe Jolie-Laide was started in 2010. So let's start there. What's your background? What led you to start the winery? And where did the interest in winemaking from these uncommon grapes come from?
My background is so much less interesting than Jenny's, but I'm from Chicago, born and raised in restaurants. So literally worked in restaurants my whole life, every single position you can imagine, including kitchens, restaurants eventually. I mean, this is obviously the truncated version. Restaurant brought me to California. So I was working for the Keller Group in Yountville, and I met all of the sort of like faces to the names that you would imagine, the Robert Mondavis and the Shapers and all these kinds of folks. And was like, oh, well, all these people make wine? I'm used to standing around the restaurant talking about wine and talking to other people about wine. And so the same way we say we have the restaurant term stage, same way we stage at other restaurants. So I went and spent a couple of days with some wineries in Napa. And so on my days off, that would have been harvest of 07, on my days off, every single moment I had away from the restaurant, I was at the winery for harvest. And then eventually they brought me on full time. So I became the cellar master for these guys called Realm Cellars, or what was Realm at the time. It's a much bigger, different operation at this point. So I qualitatively was working in Napa, and it was a great experience and learned a lot. But then stylistically, those wines weren't like totally aligned with how my palate and, the wines that I drink. And so at that era, we had just started to see kind of the mold of what we thought California was. Arthur Roberts had just started, and Masakan and Matthiasson and Steve Edmonds, of course, like they were kind of shifting the narrative. And that was really impressive. And so we kind of chased that a little bit. So I went to work for a brand called Wingab, and that's where we started Jolie-Laide in 2010.
Excellent. Okay. And Jenny, I need to hear your side of the story too. We'll fact check, the other end later.
It's not that interesting. I actually got into wine through the science side of things. So I'm from New Jersey, went to college and studied chemistry in my undergrad with just the intention to go into pharmaceuticals, which I did for a couple years. And while I was in college, I was actually going to school with Angelina Mondavi, who's Peter Mondavi's granddaughter. And she was studying chemistry too. And I, of course, coming from New Jersey, had no idea that you could make wine for a living, that was even an option. So just like caught wind of what she was up to, and then also just started exploring the world of wine while I was in Philadelphia. So I would take classes at like the Wine School of Philadelphia, and just got really interested in wine in general. And all that I knew was if you wanted to do something with your life, you had to have like a degree or you had to study it. So I just applied to all the graduate schools back then. That was in 07, so a long time ago, that had winemaking programs, and got to UC Davis, and then came out here and I got my master's in viticulture and enology from 2007 to 2009. And then I just stayed, never went back, because this is the place to be to make wine.
What would the grower want to know about that strategy?
Yeah, like more so now, like probably within the past 5 years, we actually have growers like approaching us, because there is so much, especially in Sonoma County, like just like way too much Pinot planted for way too long, that a lot of growers are not able to sell their fruit. So they're looking to us and other wineries that work with different varietals, and approaching us and saying, hey, are you willing, like if we're to bud this over to whatever you want, are you willing to sign a long-term contract? So we've had Gamay, Aligote, what else?
We've got a bunch of things
A
kind
bunch
of
of
forth over
them,
the years.
yeah.
I mean, a little bit of the nuance for the vineyard folks. And again, Jenny and I, we're winemakers. We're not farmers. We don't pretend to be farmers. But at the same time, if I came to you, Fritz, and you're growing Pinot Noir in Sonoma County, and I said, "Can we put in Frabado or something?" You'd be like, "No, of course not. I sell Pinot Noir for $6,000 a ton. Why would I do that?" At the same time, yes, to Jenny's point, Chard, Pinot, Zin, God forbid, Cab, all these things are so overabundantly planted at this point. And if you're growing Pinot Noir on, a rocky hillside in Sonoma County, and you're averaging 2 to 3 tons to the acre, because people are obviously constricting the the amount so they can get really ripe and opulent, full of sugar and big and fruity wines. And that's the opposite of what we do. So we would intentionally hang a healthier, more balanced crop. So if we're pulling, 5-ish tons out of that same footprint, you as a grower, you're getting roughly the same amount of money, just more grapes coming out of the same 1 acre.
Okay, so if you know Muscadet wine from France, you might know this variety as well. What's it like in the vineyard? What's it like in the winery? What can we tell a little bit more about this variety?
This is a cool one because this is one of those unturned stones in the sense. So this is an old 1986 Dick Graff planting, who is, you as a viticulturist may know Dick Graff's name. He's kind of a luminary in California, but he's who started the Chalon group. He was a wild man. It's like him and Josh Jensen essentially were coming off of trips to Burgundy, and they're like, okay, we need limestone. Limestone is the key ingredient. Let's go to California. Let's find limestone. So they went way up into the, essentially at the base of Pinnacles National Park. So it's high elevation granite limestone. Planted a bunch of stuff. He brought Malone over because he thought it was frost resistant. It's not, but it's like, this is, 3,000? No, this is only 1,800 feet. So super high. There's a bunch of Pinot and Chard and those kinds of things up there too. This is virus, and so you can't really move it around. But in homage to Dick Graff, who's been gone for a long time, he actually died piloting a plane. They keep it in the ground. Even the name of the road is Dick Graff Way. So it's a moonscape up there. But this is kind of shearing. So like Brousseau's up there. The original Chalon Vineyard is literally right next door. Michael Michaud is right there. So these guys went up into the hills. It's, as far as the variety goes, it does bud out a little bit early. It's not frost resistant. They do have higher cover crops. So it does get kind of singed a little bit early that they kind of have to monitor. What does he use out there? He uses a lot of stylet and a lot of Paganic?
Organic for stuff, probably for leaf hoppers.
Leaf hoppers, exactly.
Yeah.
We do pick this. When we say we pick things early, generally speaking, when we say that across the board, we're usually meaning by bricks, not necessarily by dates. So like if you looked at Syrah for us, it's coming in end of September, beginning of October. So it's got a lot of hang time in the vineyard to just have accumulate a lot of sugar, which is exactly what we want. We want to be in colder sites for exactly that reason. But all of our wines are, picked pretty conservatively, lower alcohol. That one in particular, it wants to drop its acid. So this one we legitimately pick really early. And I wouldn't say for all varieties, you can just rush in and pick it early for early sake, because you're usually going to end up pretty shrill. This wine is delicious, picked at like 18.5.
What really impressed me was the tannin structure, that grippiness. We compared it almost to Nebbiolo or something like that, having a medium body and the mid palate, but then this finish of grippy tannin. So really, really shocked me actually what was going on in the glass there. So yeah, so you said thicker skins probably attributes to the tannins, right?
Yes, yeah. And we've slowly modified our winemaking style, our winemaking approach to that wine. Now, after the first year, we did 100% whole cluster, foot stomped it, which causes those wines to be quite tannic to begin with and pretty wound up. And once we tasted that, we were like, whoa, okay, let's take a step back. So we started doing a bin or two kind of carbonic at the bottom of the tank and the rest foot stomped. And then in 2023, we even more so modified that just so the wine is so much more approachable, because the 21 is, probably within the past 6 months, just now, you're able to drink it. It was just ripping your mouth apart. The tannins were so intense.
I guess for context, just so everyone knows, we don't destem anything. We do for clients and for other people who make wine but for all the Jolie-Laide wines, we're 100% whole cluster. But we kind of work in the fermentations a little bit differently, in the sense we do a lot of carbonic. Yes, we don't beat up the stems the same way. We love the savory sort of complexity and undertones that stems bring. If we were picking riper, obviously you leach a lot of potassium, it shifts your pH, all that kind of stuff that you know well. If we were picking riper, maybe we wouldn't be able to do as many stems, but because our starting pHs are a little bit lower, even on Syrah, if we're cusping into closer to 3.8 as a finished wine, that's still okay. It's still very healthy. With that Mongoose in particular, that it was inspired by our friend Jamie Motley. She's very passionate about the variety. She is the one who brought it up. And so we just kind of signed on. We're like, yeah, sure. What a fun variety. We've had plenty of examples from the Savoie. That would be really fun. But because Syrah is one of its parents. The first year, exactly like Jenny said, we're like, oh, it's like Syrah, sure. Syrahs, generally speaking, we literally just put stuff and huck it in the tank. Like there's no sorting table, there's no anything. And so that's what we did the first year, and it turned out to be like viciously tanning. So the second year, we backed off. The third year, so we do so much carbonic on things like Gamay and Trousseau and Cinsault and all these kinds of varieties, the lighter, thinner skin varieties. So the third year, we treated it more like that.
Okay.
Usually speaking, about 3/4 through the fermentation of being kind of trapped in a carbonic stasis, we usually go in and foot stomp it all. So things like Gamay have some time on the skins, so it's not just bubblegum, it has some structure. That variety, the Mondes, we opened the tank to get ready to foot stomp it, and it was already building so much tannin that we just totally bypassed and went straight to the press.